Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be painting up the Kelermorph from the Genestealer cult's army. And here are all the paints and stuff I used, whether I've shown them or not. And then I assembled up to the model up to the point that it would get in the way of painting, which is basically the whole body is assembled except for his front handkerchief, his two additional arms, the pipes that he stands on, and his head are separate. And I primed him with black car primer. And now getting into painting, I forgot to take a picture of the first paints I used. But basically we're going to go to his cape, which in the end is a mistake. I should have went for his armor first, we'll explain later. But basically, with Thondia Brown, Mournfang Brown, Xandri Dust, and Naggaroth Night, we're going to paint his cape. Now, one thing I will say, the whole model has been covered in Naggaroth Night first as a base layer. Naggaroth Night, dark purple, is going to be the foundational color. So first, Thondia Brown all over the cape. Then we're going to do a 1-to-1-ish mix of Thondia Brown and Mournfang Brown, covering 90% of everything except the deepest, darkest recesses. Once that is done, we're then going to take pure Mournfang Brown and we're going to do our first wave of highlights. First, a fine edge line on all the sharp edges and stuff, and then we're going to do horizontal or vertical slash. It depends on the flow of the cape, but we're going to do slashes all along the cape towards the edge, and make sure it goes deep into where the recesses are, so there's a good buildup of that. Now, I am continuing practicing with this new brush, which is a bit larger. It has a nice tip and stuff, so I'm trying to see how this works and still trying to get used to it. So I'm a little worse at what I would normally do, but yeah, horizontal slashes all over. Then with Xandri Dust, we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to apply it on all these sharp edges and do slashes all throughout, focusing on more raised areas. And then once that's done, I wanted to try going back to just using the Thondia Brown, or the base color of this, as a wash, but it didn't darken it enough. It wasn't good enough. So then I went with the very true base color, which is Naggaroth Night, and applied a wash of this all over. It did better to darken and tie things together. I then re-highlighted with Xandri Dust on the most raised folds, edges, and stuff like that. And then done. Alright, with Cantor Blue, Kalidor Sky, and Baharoth Blue, and of course Naggaroth Night, the base coat or foundation color, we're going to paint. I should have split this into two parts, but I thought because they're the same colors it'd be pretty much the same, but basically his pants and his arms. So basically Cantor Blue all over. Then went straight to Kalidor Sky and covered 99% of everything except the deepest, darkest recesses, and for the pants, the deepest, darkest recesses on the back side. Then I did a 1-to-1-ish mix of Kalidor Sky and Baharoth Blue and did the first wave of highlights, focusing on the edges, most raised areas, flat plains, and the such. And then I went with Naggaroth Night and applied a wash all over the blue to tie things together and add some more depth. And now what you're going to see is a bit of a mess. So the pants were easy to do, but it is his Genestealer arms that are the problem because of their weird shape, the roundness, the sharp edges and stuff. So basically what you're going to see is me going back to the mix of Kalidor Sky and Baharoth Blue, applying some highlights and stuff, and then reapplying a wash from Naggaroth Night, and then building up the layers. And eventually I'll start adding more Baharoth Blue to lighten it, and this allows me to build up a gradual color scheme up, because round things are a little difficult for me to grasp. That's just how it's been, and his arms are not helping, and so basically using continuous washes to shadow and show the way, and then adding lighter and lighter or more Baharoth Blue to the Kalidor Sky, and then building up layers of highlights until eventually I get to pure Baharoth Blue and apply a dot or two here or there on the most flat open plains and the sharpest raised edges on his chitin arms. And now with Xerxes Purple, Daemonet Hide, Ditchala Lilac, And of course, Nagaroth Knight, we're going to paint his Genestealer hands. So basically, Xerxes purple all over. Then with Daemonhead Hide, we're going to basically do all the flat planes, upper area, sharp edges, basically cover 90% of everything we've just done. And then we're going to go with the T'Challa Lilac and basically do half of everything we just did. The most raised areas, sharpest knuckles, edges, stuff like that. And trying our best to do straight lines across the hand from the knuckle down. A little difficult with this brush. You have to get the right consistency with water. Then a wash of Nagaroth Knight to tie the colors together, add better shadow, and then we re-highlight with T'Challa Lilac on the most raised areas, knuckles, and joints. Alright, with Daemonhead Hide, T'Challa Lilac, Pallid Witchflesh, and Nagaroth Knight, we're going to paint his head. So Daemonhead Hide all over. Then we're going to take 1-to-1-ish of Daemonhead Hide into T'Challa Lilac and basically cover almost the entire head except for his eyes. Then with T'Challa Lilac, we're going to water this down a bit so it's a bit translucent, and we're going to apply layers on the top of his head, his eyebrows, the sides of his skull, and stuff like that. Then with Nagaroth Knight, we're going to apply a wash all over, mostly focusing on the sides, but the top will be covered a bit, but just not like letting it sit there, to apply shadow and redarken things, tie things together, and show us where he has like veins on his head. So this helps bring it out. Going back to T'Challa Lilac and then re-highlighting the top of the head and trying to hit the parts of the veins of his head, his eyebrows, his ears and stuff, trying to bring that out. Then going back with Nagaroth Knight and putting another wash in like into his ear, around the edges of his head, around the veins and stuff, his eyes, and then re-highlighting that again with T'Challa Lilac to bring things out, like a few layers here and there, and then finally a layer of sort of 1-to-1-ish T'Challa Lilac and Pallid Witchflesh on the top of his head, his eyebrows, or what would be his ears, the top of his ears, and like the edges of his skull on the right and left above his eyes. Yeah. Alright, with Catachan Flesh, Doombull Brown, Xandri Dust, we're going to try something new. We're going to paint the leather holsters and guns that he has. So, Catachan Flesh all over. There's 3 of them in total. They're one on one hand, one on his back, hip, and two are on both of his hips, sides. So Catachan Flesh, and then highlight all the edges and stuff with Doombull Brown. Of course, I got horrible footage of it. Then I did a 1-to-1-ish mix of Doombull Brown and Xandri Dust, and I re-highlighted all the edges, stuff like that, feathered it in a few areas and stuff. Don't forget the straps as well. And then I went with pure Xandri Dust on the most raised, sharp edges of each of the guns and stuff, and looks pretty interesting, actually. Alright, with Calidor Sky and Moot Green, we're going to paint the little dagger on his back. I didn't do too good. Base layer Calidor Sky all over, and then I mixed a 1-to-1 of Calidor Sky and Moot Green, and you know what? Instead of making a transition color, it actually made it a darker green. And I painted this sort of... I tried it on the edges, but it didn't work too well because the brush I was using was a bit too big. And then I used Moot Green to highlight the edges. This didn't work, so I used the in-between color to cover like the blade part, and then I just highlighted that with Moot Green in the end. But, okay, not my best work. Now that that's done, with AK Interactive Ultramatte Varnish, we're going to apply this all over the model and everything we've painted. I water it down a bit to get rid of its whitening effect, and usually I apply 2 coats. Alright, trying to do some metals. So with lead belcher, duraluminum, which is a very bright silver, retributor armor, and liberator gold, and Naggaroth, we're going to do the metals, which is just 2 colors, silver and gold. So lead belcher on all what is going to be silver chains, his gun handles, we're going to leave it into the recesses because like his guns are like, they look like chunks of metal put together, like there's deep recesses in them. And then once that's done, we're going to take retributor armor, we're going to place it on all the gold places. I'm going to give him a gold belt buckle, but also the Genestealer symbol. Then we're going to take a wash of Naggaroth and we're going to apply 1 to 2 washes all over all the metal things we've just done to add some extra color into them, to re-add the depth to his guns in case we messed it up and stuff, and just add some depth. Then with duraluminum, we're going to re-highlight all the edges of his pistols and do little crisscross slashes into them here and there. Then with Liberator Gold, we're going to highlight all the edges of the gold, a few flat planes here and there, there's just barely any. Yeah, on the pistols, I wanted the, I don't know what it's called, but it's where the bullets are in the revolvers. It has a specific name, but I can't remember it right now. And we're going to use that as a highlight, and the guns came out pretty decent, actually. Surprising. And then we get to final assembly. Now, a few things. I did not talk about how I painted the armor because, I mean, I've done this many times before, but this one wasn't one of my best works, but I wanted to try with purple. But basically, if you've watched any of my past 2 videos before this, you've seen me do this exact spot, and I wanted to focus on the more unique areas. That's why I didn't talk about his face bandana, because it's red, and I've just done capes like that the last time. And so I wanted to focus on the more unique things or unique aspects or stuff that you don't see that often, because how many times I'm going to show how to paint the exact same thing like 3 videos in a row. So and done. Well, this was an interesting one. I skipped over some basic stuff and things that I do often, but also like his base and stuff. Just you can paint it however you like. This is just the theme of my Genestealer cult's armies, that they're on like they're on the streets, so asphalt, road, dirt, damage stuff. Overall, I would say I did an 8 out of 10 on him, but so there are a few things. First off, I'm trying to get better with this brush and this brush tip. I'm beginning to see its limitations, but it can somewhat dip into the fine details, somewhat, but it's very iffy. I need a more finer brush because my other brushes kind of just died. So I'm also learning the nuance. Basically what I mean is the brush requires the paint to have a certain amount of water in them to flow well, and so it's me trying to figure that out, and also because each individual paint has different viscosities and translucent factors that make things a bit difficult. So I'm somewhat learning a new skill essentially, and so there are some limits. Apart from that, the guns actually came out really well. The Naggaroth Knight did very well as a wash to bring out the brightness, I will say. The brown cape, first time tried that color, turned out very well. His head, like, I know I take pictures and they're very like zoomed in and stuff, but if you look at the model with your own eyes and stuff from just a few inches away or from the regular distance, it's like, it's fine. It's just when I take these high quality pictures that you can see each individual brush stroke and it makes it look worse than it actually is. But the only thing that was really difficult was, apart from his armor, trying to get it bright because it's so small, his arms. The Genestealer arms have always been an issue because they're round, they're cylinders, and so you're trying to create your own like artificial light stuff and the shadows and stuff there, and so it's a bit difficult. But the armor, honestly, if I try to do the speed painting route, it actually turns out very good. My speed painted trash neophytes, their armor looks better because of how I painted it, because I painted it first. It's using dry brushing and stuff, so it's picking up all the details, and so it naturally looks better than when I try to do it a hand brushing each piece by hand, because it has all those ribs and stuff. So well, learned my lesson there. But overall, yeah, 8 out of 10. There were some things I didn't do good, there's some clearly, but I'm trying to learn to get better with this brush because all my other brushes are kind of broken-ish, except for a few, but they're like for detail stuff. I have some, my other brushes can only lay large blotches of paint or really fine detail. And the new brush I got is expensive, but it can pretty much bridge most of the gap, but it has some weird nuances. Well, anyway, so overall, it is not my best work, but I did improve on a few things, learned some stuff, realized some stuff. The metals came out great. His face looks good. His hands look good. The only probably big issues I'd have is just straight up with his colors. So the blue pants and stuff he has, it's not that good. I don't know. The bright blue just doesn't seem to work with this. I maybe should have made his arms and pants. His pants a different color. Arms probably a darker blue. Apart from that, it probably would. It just overall the colors I chose. I don't know why, but it just does. I don't take it seriously. The cape looks great. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 cape. His face looks great. Absolutely great. 10 out of 10. Well, maybe 9 out of 10 because I didn't do his eyes, but like, they're so small. It's like you can barely see them. Well, alright, one more down. Another lesson learned. Now, I have no idea what I'm going to be doing for my next kit at all. I could go to my pile of shame and dig something out, or I could wait for Emperor's Children to come out. Unfortunately, like right now, I have to make a choice because I can't really just sit around and do nothing. I mean, this is my hobby. What am I going to do with these vast amounts of time in the day? Just stare at the wall? Yeah. Well, alright. Anyway, so like the video if you like the video, share if you want to share, comment if you want to comment, and more to come. Bye.